All right, let's talk about England a little bit. In spite of everything that's going on in Europe, England was really quite stable and provided a sustained support for artists. Henry VIII tried to compete with others like Francis I in France, and so he wanted to have the best of everything there as well. Music and literature and architecture flourished in England. They pretty much left painting up to the Europeans, which they called the foreigners, Northern Europeans. As a young man, Henry VIII was very loyal to the church, and he defended it with Luther's attacks. And he was rewarded in 1521 by the Pope and granted the Defender of the Faith. However, when the Pope would not annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon, his wife of many years, Henry broke with Rome and became the supreme head of the Church of England, which is the Anglican Church there today. So he mandated an English translation of the Bible. And so in every church in 1536, he dissolved the monasteries, confiscating all of their great wealth and jewels and precious metals and everything, which of course bolstered his royal purse. And in 1548, religious images were officially prohibited in England. So during the brief reign of Mary Tudor, which was his daughter to Catherine of Aragon, his only daughter to Catherine of Aragon, England officially returned to Catholicism, but very short time, because then Elizabeth, his daughter to, why can't I think of her name? I will remember, but anyway, I can't right this second, in 1558, and she confirmed the Protestant country as long as she reigned, and pretty much the same way. She was so effective as a ruler that it became the Elizabethan age. So here he is, Henry VIII. We all recognize him. Hans Holbein was, obviously this is by his son, and Hans Holbein was trained by his father in the northern tradition with this close realism that had emerged in Flanders. We've already talked about this. But he also incorporated a little bit of the Italian ideals of the sculpturesque form. So we see lots of chiaroscuro, and look, there's lots of value there. So there is a remarkable amount of Tudor portraits that survive today, lots of because the Northern German artists that went there to work during this time. And Holbein, he shaped pretty much the court for the taste, the upper class people there, with his quality paintings. Holbein first visited London in 1526 and was introduced to the English statesman Thomas More, who was Henry VIII's chancellor. He returned in 1532 and was appointed as the court painter for Henry VIII. He created a spectacular series of portraits of nobles and diplomats associated with the Tudor court there. So I love this painting. The reason why I added it, I think that the Northern Renaissance, it was limited in what they offered, and so I'm adding this. It's an interesting piece, and it relates to a lot of what's happening, going on in the world at the time. And so he is a German painter, and he's moving to England. These are two French diplomats that he's painting. One is representing Francis I, the court in France, and the other is representing the Vatican. So he's an ambassador to the Holy See, and his name is Georges de Selve, and he's on the right. And Jean de Ditoir was a French ambassador to England. Holbein paints these objects in remarkable detail, very similar to what we've seen in other artists in the Northern Renaissance. And the textures with the wonderful fabrics and things that are going on there with this beautiful Persian rug. And so let's talk a little bit about it. We already know from listening to the video and the homework that the dagger tells us that Ditouville is 28, and that the arm of Selve he's 24 on the book. Underneath the book, it's telling us that he's 24. The globe is showing us the Ditouville's family estate. It's marked on there. It's hard to see it from here, but that's what it's there for. And that is where this actual painting lived for a really long time. The objects on the shelf on the top relate to the heavens, whereas the images below relate to earthly concerns. And music is always considered harmonious, and the idea that the string is broken is talking about the Protestant Reformation and things that are going on in the world. The Lutheran hymnal is open to Lutherans' best-known composition on the bottom shelf, and it's the composition of Come Holy Ghost, Our Souls Inspire. Neither man was Protestant, obviously, because one's working for the Pope and the other is, in the French royal court. But they were sympathetic to the reformers. The mosaic tiles on the bottom relate to Westminster Abbey, which we've already studied, and we're going to get further into that when we get into later down the road, when we go back to the later European period. And it's meant to represent the macrocosm and the cosmic order of things. So what is this really long, weird shaped thing in the foreground here? Oops, my little thing is not working. What is this, and why is it so deformed, and why is it in the foreground? So this is interrupting the scene, and it's this balanced composition, and then all of a sudden you get this anthropomorphic image, and it's distorted, and it's only recognizable when you stand from one very acute angle, or if you look at the image with a cylindrical mirror. In the viewer stands to the right, it becomes a skull. Let me just go forward so you can see what the skull looks like. And this is a memento mori, and it's meant to remind us of death, and that reminder that we are all mortals, and that one day we will all go to heaven, or hopefully we'll go to heaven, right? So the curious part is in the upper left corner with a half-hidden crucifixion, and this is ponder the death and the resurrection, and it's all referring back to the conflicts between the state, between the Catholics and the Protestant, and it's implying that these bright, confident men will have the ability and knowledge and diplomatic skill to be able to resolve these problems. That's what it all comes back to.